Yo, welcome back to another Albumaholics meeting where we confess our problems with listening to albums. This week's band, group, goat is Daft Punk.
The GOAT, huh?
I don't know what the goat, but it's definitely one of my favorite bands.
That's fair.
I mean, I know you said you're gonna have a little problem listening to this.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but
Yeah,
it
spoiler
was.
free.
Yeah.
How'd you find it? It's only 4 albums.
It was. It was. I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay, that's good. That's good because otherwise it's gonna be a whole one-sided affair.
Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to some of the other episodes, you know that I have a very high opinion of Daft Punk. More of the two of us. And yeah,
I definitely would say so.
yeah. I mean, little background on Daft Punk. If somehow you don't know who they are, they are they're like a house electronic. I mean, there are a lot of different
Dance.
genres.
Yeah.
Duo group from Europe, who's I'm not even gonna try to butcher their full names, but it's Tomas and Guy Manuel. Um, who have made just some great albums. And for a band that's been around 30 years with 4 albums, the the popularity and the credit and all that they have, it's pretty astounding. And for 4 albums and 30 years, again, I can see them just, it's a band that's gonna stand the test of time.
I could see that. Yeah. They have had a major influence on, I would say, that style of music, and just I think they're huge in America, and I think they've been huge across Europe. So
Yeah, I mean, I just think they're just a huge band in the world too.
yeah.
I mean, they've done motion picture soundtracks, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not studio albums, but they've had most of their albums remixed by people that found them, to be influences. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, I think you'd be hard pressed to find an EDM artist nowadays that wouldn't put Daft Punk
As an inspiration.
as an inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a big band that really just kind of came out of the underground French house scene in the time and just revolutionized that. I mean, they're known mostly for their electronic music, but before that, the two guys they played in like a live music band with real instruments.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember the name of the band, but that's where the name Daft Punk comes from. Is they were playing in their band around, I think Paris, and a local paper did a review on their thing, and they called the band as a whole just a bunch of Daft Punks up there playing. And so when these guys made their duo group, they took that name and called themselves
Daft Punk.
Daft Punk, kind of as
Yeah.
like look at us now.
Mm-hmm.
But they just broke up, not even a month ago, I think at this point.
Yeah, I think it was earlier this month.
But I mean, that's a long career from 2021, starting in
The late 90s?
the mid 90s, I would
Mid
think. Yeah.
90s.
I mean, with their first album, Homework. So, what did you think about this album?
So, like I've said before, this type of music isn't really my strong, preference.
Yeah.
I going through this album, it felt a little long. I gave it a C plus. That's just my personal opinion. Some people consider this a great album.
Hey, man, keep it a 100. All right?
Yeah.
Nothing but the truth here.
I can imagine a lot of these songs would be a lot better live.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see that for sure.
going through these and listening to them from a studio album perspective, some of them just dragged on. I just kind of lost interest with some of them. My favorite songs on this album are obviously Around the World. That's one of their biggest ones. I think even nowadays,
Oh, yeah, it's still a huge song.
staple of their live performances. That and that was really about it. I really like Defunk. I think that was a pretty cool one. But it's the first two songs were kind of weird to me. I really didn't know how to describe it. I know the second one was just like an advertisement for a radio station, which is kind of funny. But
The first one's what? Oh God, how do you?
yeah, Daft and Dirket.
Yeah.
Or, I'm not sure.
Which it's funny you say that these sound live. Yeah, again, Daft and I don't. That's an excerpt of a live performance.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it opens with a live performance. I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, I think it's like a live. Yeah, it's a live performance before they get big. So
Okay. But I mean, there was another song on here, Teachers. I was like, I I was listening to it and I was like, is these just a bunch of people's names, like what's going on here? And I kind of looked into the history of that, and it was a bunch of their influences, you know, a lot of people that really weren't big at the time, that they drew influence from. So I thought that was kind of cool to play homage to them, off their first album. But overall, it just wasn't my type of music. I definitely did like Around the World. I mean,
yeah, I mean that's
and
still a banger.
yeah, and it's such a simple song too.
Yeah, with the
But
one lyric, and I mean the beat changes a bit, but
yeah,
it's still just a good song.
yeah. I've heard it said that it's not what you say but how you say it, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's completely true with Around the World. I don't know, it just flows nice. Like you can listen to that for 10 minutes and it's like, oh, it's still, you don't get tired of it,
Right.
So, but what did you think of this album?
So I gave this album a B. The house music itself, I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a big fan of. I guess I'm not actually a big electronic music EDM fan in general. I'm just not a big fan of songs that are driven by one pulsing beat, like you would find like club songs, pretty much. And this had a few of them. I mean, my highlights, I really liked. Well, this would be ironic because my reasoning is good beat, but I put Revolution 909.
Okay.
I mean, Around the World, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and Defunct. Those are my big ones. I liked a lot of this album though. Like I had it on and I was just vibing to it.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good song. I mean, I think it's pretty crazy that Defunct and Rolling and Scratching, the two songs I was selling, those were made in '95, and those are the two huge. They released those as singles originally, just tapes,
Oh, really?
just cassette tapes that made it around underground,
Hmm.
and like they were so good that they got them a record deal. I mean, this album's recorded in '97, but those were from '95.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of crazy too that a lot of that this album was just it wasn't all the tracks weren't made to be released as an album. They just thought they'd release these as singles.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they had so many good singles
That they were just like, why not? We just put them all together.
Yeah, I think Tomas says it was supposed to be just a load of singles, but we did so many tracks over a period of 5 months. I realized we had a good album, and they put them together. I mean, so this band, I don't want to just sound like I'm listing off the Wikipedia page, but this is the first band we've done where they've had like
a huge
just I mean honestly not
amount
huge,
of information available.
And so I was definitely trying to find some of that too to balance out just the albums. And I thought it was pretty interesting. Like they said that the name of the album, Homework, referred to the fact that they made this record at home very cheaply and very quickly and spontaneously trying to do cool stuff.
Yeah,
I think you can feel that in this album, right? Like just two dudes. And
You
I
know,
think
just-
you find this through the rest of the album or the albums too. Is that it's just Daft Punk just doing it
themselves.
themselves.
Yeah.
And they recorded this album at their own studio and they mixed it themselves and then sent it off to the studio to be mastered. I mean, how crazy is that for like a debut album by a band?
Yeah, to do pretty much all of the work themselves and then just get the record label to put the little bit of polish on it and then actually distribute it. So
it said, I was reading too, then they were talking about they had signed with this smaller record label. I think it's Soma. And they released the two singles to them. But those singles were so popular that like bigger actual record labels, and they ended up going with Virgin, were like a bidding war.
yeah,
To sign
see who
Daft
could
Punk.
sign them. Yep.
Isn't that? I mean, that's crazy for a band with just two singles that are just traded around.
Yeah.
Like they were a huge band, almost right out the gate. And I think, like this album comes out in '97, but I mean these songs are around in '95. And dance music at that time,
It's very small.
It's not small. No, dance music's pretty big, but not this type of dance music. They bring house to the masses, but I mean you're talking about there's Eurovision dance at the time like this. You're talking Rhythm of the Night or Rhythm as a Dance or Rhythm of the Night. Big songs like that are just big pulsing beats, club beats
Okay.
with big hooks. I mean, Hadaway or what? This Is Love. That's another big club song.
Okay, that's true. Yeah.
Um, but just for Daft Punk to come out with these, and it changes just that sound of dance music and club music in general in the '90s. I mean, this album was huge for that. It was a world-spanning game changer for the dance scene. And yeah, it's just so unlike popular dance music you heard in the '90s.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's just big Eurovision with a big beat, with almost like a big R&B hook and chorus.
Yeah, kind of the slower side on the thing. Yeah,
sometimes slower side, but yeah, sometimes just big pulsing beats with big hooks and, you know. But you didn't find that at Daft Punk. You found good, solid beats with good, solid like transitions, like just a staple of what you'll see later in their career.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with that. Later on in their career, they emphasize that more. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was, and if you get a chance to, Defunk has maybe one of the most interesting music videos I've ever watched. I don't know. Did you watch that?
I did not, but I can imagine.
It's directed by Spike Jonze. I mean, if you know that, that's a decently big-sized movie director.
Yeah.
But it's just so weird. It's like just got Defunk playing in the background, and it's this dude. It's this like anamorphic dog walking around just this time, just like an after work type in New York.
Yeah.
He goes to like an open market used book sale and to the store and
just
yeah. It's so crazy, and it's so kind of reminiscent of what you see from Daft Punk again later. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of, I like this album not because like I'm big into the house part of Daft Punk, but because you can just turn this album on and vibe to it, and it shows a lot of what Daft Punk is going to come up with later.
Yeah.
But again, I gave it a B because some of the songs were just beat-driven dance club music.
Yeah.
That's not.
I was gonna ask, did you feel like any of these songs on here were too long?
Yeah. So this album, no. But that's because this album, I don't know. Like I said, it's easier to turn this album and vibe to. The songs, yeah, you could just play them back to back and they blend in. But there's no real songs here, I think, that you turn on to just like listen to. Like, you know, you turn on other songs and you like listen to the lyrics, you listen to the vibe, and you know what's coming up, and you're engaged in the song. These songs, I don't feel like are written to do that. I feel like these songs are
they're meant to be played live and
to play live, but to be the background of something else you're doing.
Yeah, okay, I can understand.
Like
that
you would in a
better,
club. Like you don't go to the club to listen to the music they're playing.
Yeah.
You go to the club to drink and dance.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like
and
these are
listen
written
to
for.
it in the background. Yeah.
But I feel like later in Daft Punk,
it switches.
It switches, and there are songs to listen to, and I do feel like Daft Punk does have some long songs. And we'll get into that, but I didn't feel like any of them were long on this, just because of the type of music they are.
Okay. Yeah, I had one song in particular on here that it was rock and roll, and I was listening to it, and to me it felt like it was like 5 or 6 minutes, and I looked at where the seek bar was, and it was barely halfway through, and it was only at 2.5 minutes or something. I was like, oh my god, man,
those are the worst.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this isn't necessarily my style of music.
No,
I definitely agree with what you're saying. How this is, you can see this is more as the background type music when you're doing something else, when you're at a club or something like that. That's where it would really shine. So, yeah.
No, should we get into their next album?
Yeah, their next album here, 2001, Discovery.
What'd you think? Let's just have you go first, and everyone.
Okay. All right. So this was a complete change for me. I gave this album an A.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this album for whatever reason. I just liked the songs more. It started off great with One More Time, another one of those, just repeats one lyric, or not really.
No, it's not really. It's more.
It
than that.
has a few lines in it.
Yeah.
But it's very repetitive. But it also is very catchy. And it's very
structured
interesting and
very well.
Yeah. And then it goes off with Aerodynamic. I really like that song too. Right in.
What about that transition?
Right, yeah, I know.
That bell. Oh,
Yeah.
every time I hear that song come on.
Dun. And then, Digital Love was also another good song. It's like the first three right off the bat. I really enjoyed those songs.
Digital Love has been like, I swear, if we looked up my Spotify statistics, that's a top 5 song. That song has been in my top played like
Forever.
all time, forever. It's not my favorite Daft Punk song, but
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and then Digital Love, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. That's another good one. I really like Crescendos. I just really liked, most of the songs on this album. And to me, a lot of these songs, they didn't feel like they dragged on like some of them in the first album.
at Homework.
These felt more like actual songs that you could just sit down and listen to,
Yep.
instead of what we were saying with the previous album where there's just kind of background club noise.
Yeah, I have that too in my notes. That the big thing I love about this album is that it's less house beat centered, and the songs have more structure to them.
Yeah, very more structured, more melodies to them that I really liked. I don't know. I just really like this album. I didn't get tired listening to it like I did with the first album. So, what did you think?
This album is an S for me.
S?
S.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you're not surprised at that. Yeah, I mean, we'll start off with how Daft Punk even put it. How Tomas noted that Homework was influenced so many other artists to mimic its sound.
Yeah.
That they wanted to come in and do something different.
Yeah, their own thing
to distinguish themselves. And man, I think they knocked it out of the park here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This song, you're right, has so many good songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. To start off to One More Time and Aerodynamic and A Digital Love. They're just such great songs. And I find myself listening to those all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was going through and listening to these, this wasn't my most listened to album this week, the Daft Punk ones.
Yeah.
But it was definitely my second most. I love this album. And the cool thing with this album, and I think the first time I got a taste of Daft Punk, was that this has an anime to go with the whole album.
Yeah, Interstellar 5555. Right. Yeah.
And that was on Adult Swim back in the day.
Yeah.
And I caught that a few times as a kid. I wouldn't get in Daft Punk for still years after that, but when I went back and I watched it again, which it's a really cool like follow along anime by a pretty actually big.
Yeah, I think the artist made Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah,
right?
it's the company that makes it.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. Yeah. Talking about long songs though, the longest song on this album, and I love this, is called Too Long.
Yeah,
and I agree.
I noticed that too.
It's too long. It's an even 10 minutes.
That's the exact thing I put. I was like, really, like this song is too long, and it's called Too Long.
Yeah. So I love the song Something About Us off this album.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite, and it's one of those songs that, as I always listen to it, I can always picture song in my head. Like I've always pictured listening to this song, like some futuristic, the futuristic cities, like the multi-tiered cities.
Yep.
I can always imagine some dude like who just broke up with his significant other or something, going into some futuristic 1940s jazz bar to like drink his sorrows away, like some mid-level bar,
Yeah.
And the house band is just playing Something About Us. Like to me, that's always what I picture of it, and I think that's kind of what I love about Daft Punk. Is like it's not a simple song, right? It's a really good song, but it makes at least me picture something else while I listen to it, like
think
in
of
my
something.
head.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought about that. But I mean, there's a lot of good songs.
What was your least favorite song on this
Too
album?
Long.
Too Long?
For sure.
Okay. Mine was Voyager. I don't know. Yeah, Voyager. I don't know why.
This is really awkward.
Is that your favorite? Or one of your...
Let me read word for word what I have in my notes. Of all the songs on this album, though, Voyager might be my favorite. Voyager is probably 1A of my favorite.
Uh-huh.
And the little part at 2 minutes 15 seconds, you should go and listen to this, is just the part I look forward to the most when I listen to this album.
Mm-hmm.
I love Voyager. I love that beat. That it's like I can always picture myself like driving at night,
Yeah.
no cars around, and you're just
Dark
cruising down the
sky.
road,
Yeah.
and just that slower, cooler jam that just plays. Oh, I
Yeah.
love Voyager, and the song that comes after it, Very Disco.
Yeah. I
It's
really
a
like
play on
that one.
words. I love it. Yeah. I mean, oh man, it hurts me that you just said that Voyager might be the weakest, and I hope you go back and listen to it though.
Maybe I feel like a lot of these albums you need to listen to more than once.
Oh, for sure.
And with me, the only one that I haven't listened to, or the only one I listened to more than once, was Random Access Memories, which is their most recent album.
Me too.
by a few, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I hope you go back and
listen to
to this again, especially Voyager. I mean, to anybody listening, that song is just all the transition from that time at 2:15 to the later half to the first half. It's just a really well written song. I can definitely see why maybe the first you wouldn't listen to it.
Yeah.
But I think definitely just sit down and just listen to it and just check it out. One thing I did learn too, to kind of pivot off of my love of Voyager, is that I didn't realize that this was a concept album. And I never realized that before.
Really?
Yeah. And again, this is according to the Wikipedia I pulled it from, is that it was supposed to strongly relate to Daft Punk's childhood memories. That Tomas says this album deals with the duo's experiences growing up in the decade between 1975 and 1985.
Okay.
I thought that was crazy. I never realized that, but kind of, with that knowledge, when I went back and listened to it, I was like, okay, I can see it, Yeah, and the record was designed to reflect a playful, honest, and open-minded attitude towards listening to music. Again,
I can see that. Yeah.
Like,
after hearing
a lot of there's no heavy, deep songs. It's a lot of
kind of fun
and light and just easy to listen to.
Yeah.
And good beats. I think the one I did want to touch on too is Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's crazy because you listen to that and that is like that song is it's definitely Daft Punk, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think of Daft Punk and you hear that beat,
you can think
you think
know
of Daft
who
Punk,
it is,
right?
Yeah.
But they didn't write that beat. That's a sample.
Oh, it is?
It's a sample from a song called Cola Bottle Baby by Edward Birdsong from the 1960s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It's crazy. Like that hook is that recognizable to Daft Punk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy wrote a song that never got popular.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote one of the greatest hooks and beats of all time.
It's kind of like what is it? All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix. I think that was originally
that's a Bob Dylan song, but I mean even the original
it was it was okay.
But it was still a bigger song because Dylan's huge.
Yeah. But I know what you're saying. Somebody else takes something from another song and makes it their own, and then it explodes because of what they added to it, how they changed it.
Yeah, it's funny you're saying that too because I have a quote here from Edwin Birdsong from 2018. He's like, I recorded Cola Bottle Baby 30 years ago, and here come some guys from France. I asked them, where did you find the music? And they said, I was going through bins and it popped out. So they were, they just found it too.
Uh-huh.
And this album does feature a lot of samples. I mean, songs I wouldn't have even
guessed.
I wouldn't guessed or even have known.
Yeah.
But it's just cool, that they were able to mix that all together into just this huge album.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really love this album. Not as much as I'll love one later, but I really love this album.
Yeah, it definitely it was a step up from the first album in my opinion.
I used to play this album a lot when I would fall asleep.
Yeah,
especially Voyager and Very Disco and
some of the slower songs. Mm-hmm.
If you don't go after home on the way home and listen to Voyager again.
All right, I'll
especially since it's night out right now.
Yeah, and I got a kind of a far drive.
Yeah, and just crank it up a little bit and listen to it.
All right, I'll do that. All right, well, on to their next album here. 2005's Human After All.
Not a highly rated album by most people. This is to what most people put as Daft Punk's worst album.
Yeah. and I agree with that.
Ooh, really?
uh, yeah, I gave this album a C. I this was what I felt they returned to what their first album was. A lot of it was a lot of just pure electronic music. I did like some of the songs. I really liked Robot Rock, and I liked TV Rules the Nation. But I really like the live versions of those better from their Alive 2007 album.
Yeah, I mean that's just cheating. That
I know.
That concert and that tour is just so legendary.
I know. Still though, I do like those songs and I like them on this album. It's not like, I only like them because I heard them in the live
I know.
version.
I'm just saying.
Um,
I'm just giving you a hard time.
it's, I mean, to me, it's, a lot of these songs just felt repetitive. Maybe if I listen to it 2 or 3 more times or something, I'll notice some different stuff in some of the songs. But I just really didn't feel anything with this album. So I personally it was a tough listen. I think this album is, 45 minutes, and I tell you it felt longer than that.
See, I'd say the other thing.
Okay. What did you think?
Because I gave this album an A. And now I haven't listened to this album that much. Actually, to be honest, Homework and Human After All are like my 2 least listened to Daft Punk albums.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't have enough time to listen to them when I'm listening to the other 2 so often. But I really like this album. And honestly, I think without this album, we don't get Random Access Memories. Because this album...
Where they start to change.
Not change, but this sees them use more real instruments in their song.
Yeah. Yeah, they start to change.
Well, okay, yeah. But I mean, they used real instruments, but they use a lot.
Yeah,
most
a lot more than what
this.
they used to, yeah.
But I can also see why most people don't like this album.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this album was recorded in 6 weeks.
Which is a short time.
And 4 of those were spent on mixing the record.
Mm-hmm.
So that means 2 weeks they spent
making the songs, yeah.
Yeah. But it's crazy because I have this down too. At the time Human After All was released, Daft Punk considered this their favorite of their albums, describing it as pure improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that. But I think this is what's really cool about Daft Punk. And this is the one I said, this is me just standing Daft Punk.
Okay.
And I read some reviews for this album. And they're all kind of what you said. But maybe a little bit more. Not as harsh or maybe a little more harsh. But I don't know. Read them after I listened to it, and I thought they were maybe a little over dramatic take. Because I feel like the way Daft Punk records is they don't make music that they think that
is going to sell big
or sells going to big. They make music because they want to make music.
Yeah.
They tour when they want to tour.
Mm-hmm.
They restock their stupid merch when they want to restock their stupid merch.
Whenever they want to.
For the love of God, restock the merch. Sorry. That was a tangent that had... I mean, my highlights off this album for me were Human After All, Robot Rock, Make Love, and The Brainwasher.
The Brainwasher? Yeah.
That's fair.
I don't know. I kind of lost interest through that song halfway through.
I did like The Brainwasher, but that definitely brought back some big house beating trick. Mm-hmm. That was one of them, I said. Yeah. There was a lot of similarities in this one with Homework to me, I think, more so than
definitely
Discovery. With a good sub, this album sounds great.
I was actually going to say that because when I was listening to this album, the bass did sound incredible. It sounded deep and, rich. Maybe it was just, I don't know if they actually use like a real bass guitar on this.
Yeah, they use
which is probably what added to
real
it.
Guitars and
added to the fullness, I guess, of the sound. So
yeah, I didn't put it in my thing, but they didn't really use. Yeah, it had minimal production. They didn't use
any After Effects or.
And they produced this album in 6 weeks, like I said, but I guess they decided on that beforehand to like be as a as counterpoint to Discovery, which have been produced for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to spend 6 weeks, 2 weeks writing the songs and recording them, and then 4 weeks mastering. Again, man, this is me standing, but what they can write in 6 weeks,
It's pretty good.
I don't even think I could write in 2 lifetimes. I mean, this album to me is just really good. It's way better than I remember it being. Because I went in with the same attitude I always remembered having. It's not as good. The songs are crappier, you know.
Yeah, it's just gonna be
dry. It drags on. But I didn't find that, man. I loved most of the songs. I loved the real instruments, and I loved that it wasn't as light and fluffy as like Discovery was, which I do love in Discovery. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
this album's only an A. That's an S tier to me. But I love that it was a little darker and a little heavier, and it was just so much different than anything Daft Punk had put out to this point.
Yeah.
That I really enjoyed this album, and it really to me shows the range that Daft Punk can do in music. It's not just light and fluffy disco dance house type songs. They could make heavier industrial. I don't think industrial techno is a genre. Should be. They're like the Du Hast of techno. They're the Rammstein. No, but I like, and maybe that's again coming more from a more battle background. When you hear that down-tuned, heavier riff guitarist work, it just sounds good.
Yeah.
But no, I just really like this album. I mean, I would put it third.
Yeah.
To me, but
maybe someday I will listen to it again, and having my initial opinions I'll come at it the next time more open-minded, you know.
I will agree too that some of these songs do drag on for a bit. And I think they start off strong, but they definitely get into the same vein where Homework did, where it's just kind of vibing to the songs instead of like listening to them like you were Discovery. It is again lower in mine, but I see. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Well, should we get to the last one?
On to their most recent album here, Random Access Memories from 2013, which seems so long ago.
Yeah, just like yesterday.
Yeah, I thought this album came out in like 2015, 16 or something, and I saw 13. I was like, oh my god, that's way longer than I thought.
Oh yeah.
You know? This album, I gave it an A.
All right, let's hear it.
For those of you who can't see, Andy is shaking his head at me. I did really like this album. The first 8 songs for me, like I have stars on them, meaning that I really like these songs. But once it got down to Beyond, Motherboard, Fragments of Time, Doing It Right, and Contact, I just kind of they didn't hit to me like the first 8 songs. Sorry, Andy's over here just disapproving of my
we knew this coming in though.
Yeah. But I really did like this album. I like that they use a lot more real instruments, that they had a bunch of guest singers and guest musicians that played on a lot of these songs. And I think this album is definitely, it has a variety of kind of like styles of music, different things that they've tried out, and I think that they were very successful with.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know which one between this one and Discovery, which I would put as my favorite. Maybe more of this one, just because I like,
That's the right choice though.
Because I like more of the real instruments and real stuff like that. I mean, not to say that, electronic instruments and things like that aren't real. It's just not my preferred, type of instrument. So
you don't have to suck up to me. You can say Discovery's better if you want. I won't fault you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really like the first 8 songs. Especially I think my favorite song on this album is Instant Crush. I just really like that song. I like the chorus that it had. Oh wait, no. Touch is the one that had that really nice.
They both have really good choruses.
Yeah.
Instant Crush is I said Voyager was my 1A. Instant Crush is my 1B.
Oh, okay.
So favorite Daft Punk songs.
Yeah. And, obviously Get Lucky is a huge, huge single off this,
yeah.
which...
deservedly so.
Yeah. Lose Yourself to Dance is great. Within is a great song. Giorgio by Moroder.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't understand that one, but, it was a kind of a nice...
I'll touch on that one in a minute.
Yeah, kind of a nice story of the dude's life and, the different style of music that he creates. The Game of Love and Give Life Back to Music. I really like those, slow kind of groovy songs. So, but then I don't know what it was. It was just right when Beyond hit, and I was just like, okay, I didn't connect with anything like I did with the previous 8. So, Andy,
yes.
What did you think of this album? I already know, but
I didn't give this an S tier.
You think you would?
No, I didn't, because I wrote grade GOAT. This is the greatest album ever released by man. I gave this a GOAT tier. There is not a single song on here that I do not like. I think every single song on here is S tier. I mean, I guess if you had to make me say what's the least favorite song on here.
What is your least favorite song on here?
I don't know, probably Doing It Right.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
I have just meh.
Not on that. It's a good song. I really enjoy it.
Uh-huh.
But I really enjoy it. But it is, to me, the weakest song on here. Oh, man. I mean, let's just Give Life Back to Music. Okay. Before we start with this, going down the list, this album is supposed to be like a throwback, love, memento, whatever you want to call it, to the 70s and 80s LA scene.
Yeah.
And God, did they knock that out of the park. You can feel that on every single song. Give Life Back to Music. He says it's a great, slower song. I mean, you can really feel it. Feels like a 70s or late 70s, early 80s song.
Yep.
The Game of Love, again, a slower, great song with a vocoder that, one of them, I don't know who does the vocals because they will never say.
Yeah.
Just kills it. Guerrero by Mortar is just a really cool song about a cool dude. I mean, this is the dude who really brought like the techno beat to the masses. I mean, with the synthesizer and the song, with his big Donna Summers albums that he produced in the 70s. I mean, that big dance music electronic sound on those early Donna Summer songs are really what like propels
that type of music,
and it's by this guy. And I'd never heard him before, but I love that this song sits down with him. It's just him talking about it
with a slow beat,
but then just a beat that's influenced
by him,
like that when he talks about putting the click on the 20-foot track.
Yep,
that's on here. That whole song is based around that. And there's a really funny story that he tells where he goes in the studio to sit down to record it, because they ask him to come in. He's like, oh, we just want you to tell your life story. And he gets there to the studio in Paris, and it's just him and the engineer doing it. Like, Daft Punk's not there. So he sits down, and he's got 3 microphones in front of him. And he's like, I'm just telling my story.
Yeah.
What is with the microphones? And he was like, well, the one on the right's it's a newer microphone from right now. The one in the middle is a microphone from the 70s. And the microphone on the left's from the 40s.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, who's even going to hear the difference?
Yeah.
And the engineer was like, they will. They'll know.
Yeah, that's true.
And I just thought that was cool. Like, again, going back to them making music that they think is cool to them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this song uses all 3 microphones. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But it's cool that it does. And it's cool that they can tell. Going down, again, within. Just another dope, great song. Instant Crush, though, is, it's just my favorite Daft Punk song. He does such a good job on the vocals.
Yeah.
I've never really listened to the Strokes, so I don't know too much about him. Julian Casablancas, for anybody who doesn't know. But he just crushes the vocals. Again, the music video too is really cool. I don't know if you've seen that,
I
but
have not.
it's really cool. It's like a story of two mannequins, but it's shot really well.
Yeah.
Lose Yourself to Dance is just awesome. Um, I mean, I'll say the big songs besides "In the Crush" on this, and I think for a lot of people, are the ones that feature Pharrell Williams and Nile Rodgers.
Yeah.
And Nile Rodgers' guitar playing is just great. It grooves.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Chic was a huge band, which is he plays for. Had big songs in the '70s. Those songs groove too, and I mean, you can feel that '70s groove, that
Mm-hmm.
'70s disco groove on these songs.
Oh yeah.
There's also a really cool fan made video for "Lose Yourself to Dance," which features just a bunch of
Like regular people.
not regular people, but just it features like clips from Soul Train and other movies that feature
Oh,
dancing and
okay.
all that. It's really cool. It has its own music video too, but I think the fan made one's better.
Yeah.
Touch is my second favorite song off this album. It's 8 minutes, but man, it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. I mean, my two were Instant Crush and Touch. Those were my favorite.
Just the way that song transforms and moves and grows, and
Mm-hmm.
Paul Williams' vocals is just great.
Mm-hmm.
Just really makes you think of like a guy, an older gentleman, right? Like who's at the end of his life and is thinking back and looking at pictures and
Thinking everything that
starts
he's
off
done.
thinking about things he's done, and kind of takes you back to like the big band era with the the brass section and all that. It's
Yep.
just a really cool song. I mean, what can I say about Good Lucky that hasn't probably been said by everybody?
Yeah. That's probably their biggest hit that they've released,
Right?
at least popularity wise.
Oh yeah. I mean that album, that song is just, it's so good. Pharrell Williams and Nile Rodgers crushed that out of the park with
Mhm.
Daft Punk's album. Beyond just a cool little song. I know you don't like it. Just the way that grooves to me too.
Yeah.
Motherboard. Every there's quotes from like Motherboard, which always makes me laugh, because it always makes me think Daft Punk just has to be fucking with us. Where it's like, this song really shows the interconnection of like the RAM part, like the random access memory computer thing
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
human brain, and it's like,
Like, how did
how-
you come to
okay.
that? Yeah.
I get it. I feel like you're just fucking with us. Fragments of Time is cool. I really like that song because there's a whole YouTube series called The Collabs, which is interviews from all the people that collab on this album.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd Edwards talks about how his whole life was based on the East Coast. It was just based on the East Coast. His studio was over there. His whole life was over there. And then when Daft Punk was like, hey, come record a song with us, collab with us on this album, they brought him out to LA. And he was out there for like 2 weeks, I think. And he's cruising around like Hollywood Boulevard with them. And they're just talking music.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just touched on like how awesome that was, and how he's just making memories cruising around, you know. And, you know, these are the times you remember, like the fragments of time you remember in your life. Like you don't remember the whole event for most things. You remember
Certain
little
things.
fragments of it.
Yeah.
And he talks about like how that 2 weeks he spent out there just changed his life, and he uprooted his whole studio and moved out to LA to do what he does now out there, because just those 2 weeks. Like the backstory of that song is just so cool. And he talks about how just off all those moments he wrote the lyrics to that song. Doing It Right, like I said, was probably my least favorite song. That's more just, it's just a big EDM like dance number kinda,
Yeah.
with like some touchback to disco and all that. Contact, I love the way that song grooves and it picks up, and I love the little intro from the Apollo missions.
Yeah, I really like, the first half of the song.
I love the second half more than I like the first half.
Really?
When it starts getting heavy and it grooves. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I love about it is this uses real acoustic drums in all the songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like this album it's really just like their own custom made module box, and then like real instruments. There's not much electronics to the song, or to this album, and I think that's what's really cool about it. But I like the second half of Contact more, to get back on track to what we were talking about. This album is just so good to me, and I think a lot of that, like I said, it's a tribute to the late '70s, early '80s. which is a lot of what I grew up listening to. What my dad played a lot of Elton John and a lot of Carole King, a lot of James Taylor, like the big singer songwriters of the late '70s and '80s that had this same style. So I think there's a bit of nostalgia to it,
Mm-hmm.
but then it's also it takes from the current and the present, and it just marries those two together. So to me, there's just a bit of nostalgia with wow, this was there's also parts that I liked that I when I found music that I enjoyed, and it just puts those two together.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a couple decent bookend speakers. I haven't got this album on vinyl yet, but I'd love to. But I played this album out of those, and like with a good transition, and it sounds so good. It sounds so warm. It fills the speakers. It fills the room
Yeah.
you're in.
And I think that's a lot of the real instruments that they use.
Yeah, and just their ability to make. So, I mean, I've listened to this album 400 times at least.
Yeah. And I remember you told me when you first listened to this album, you didn't really like it as much as you do now.
Yeah, I listened to this the first time and I didn't care for it too much. But then I kind of had the songs kind of worm their way into my ear after it, and I was like, well, I'll give it another shot. I really liked it. And then I listened to it a third time. And I was like, man, this is actually pretty good. And then back when I was still, this came out in 2013, I was still playing World of Warcraft pretty heavy. And I would raid every weekend, and I would listen to this whole album.
Yep.
At least twice a week. I would just listen to this whole album. But I did something kind of different. Because, even though I'd listened to all these albums, I still went back and listened to them. And instead of listening to it the way I would normally and then look up some reviews, I looked up negative reviews for this album, or like not as positive, and tried to listen to it
from their perspective,
what they didn't like. That some of these songs were too long and they were too muddled. I just couldn't. I tried to take it from a different view to like, what if I didn't think this was the greatest album of all time, and I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read that someone didn't like it because Instant Crush just sounds like the Strokes, and then the Pharrell Williams and songs with Nile Rodgers, they didn't sound like Daft Punk songs. They didn't sound like Daft Punk songs. But all I could listen to it was like Daft Punk wrote these songs and then brought them in to make them not to make them better. Maybe it's a terrible way to put it, but more they wrote these songs with these people in mind, or gave them some liberty and some direction. Said, hey, this is what we want to do. How can you help make it improve on it? Or, hey, we have a great song we think you'd be perfect on. I didn't find that these didn't feel like Daft Punk songs, and they felt more collaborative. They were overshadowed. I felt like, they just had guest stars on, but they were still Daft Punk songs.
Yeah.
And it was talking about, I think it's for, I just read this. I don't remember what song it's for. But it's talking about how, they brought in session players too to play like the bass, even though they played. And they were sitting there, he was talking about him sitting there humming like a complex bass riff to him for a song.
Mm-hmm.
It's like without even playing it. It's like clearly these guys are just master songwriters.
Yeah.
And I mean, this album is widely acclaimed.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
There's no doubt about it. It's won Album of the Year. I mean, I know the Grammys don't mean that much anymore. I mean, maybe they meant a little more in 2013, but I mean, this album is just acclaimed, and everybody who worked on it has nothing but good things to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I see why. And I think it's popular now. But I think looking back, this album will only get more popular. Just for the production quality, the songwriting ability on it. And I understand why that Daft Punk went out on this album.
Yeah, I can.
This is the culmination of everything they had really done to this point.
Mm-hmm.
How do you top this album?
Yeah, and I feel like with how successful it was, people are going to, they're going to compare this, and if they were to release a new album, they'd be like, well, the new album's not as good or whatever because of this and that. And I don't think that necessarily be fair, because although this is a Daft Punk album, it kind of doesn't feel like it, but it does at the same time. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's different, and that's what makes it good. But if they were to come out with like a new album and then have it go back to more discovery and their first album, Homework,
yeah,
I feel like people wouldn't like it as much because this album came out.
Right.
You know?
And that's why I said, like, without Human After All, you don't get Random Access Memories because they start
Changing.
bringing live music in
Mm-hmm.
or real instruments. I don't know. I mean, it's it's hard because this is obviously my favorite album of all time,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no way I'm ever going to change that. Yeah, I mean that's really all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, I do know that you love this album.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
There's no doubt about it. So, but yeah, Daft Punk overall, what would you give them as a rating?
S tier.
S tier.
S tier. It's so hard for me to explain to you on a music term why Daft Punk music is good. I couldn't break it down to you because they use this tempo, or
Yeah.
they use this beat, or they use these samples. I love Daft Punk because this music sounds really good to me.
Yeah, and that's what music is.
Yeah.
You know, there's no formula that you can make that's gonna sound good to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, every artist that puts out music, they put out music that they think, you know, that sounds good to them, and if somebody else likes it too, you know, that's good. If somebody else doesn't like it, it's not for everybody. You know.
Right.
Music is something that I don't think we'll ever be able to find the secret sauce to be like, this is what we need to have in every song so everybody's going to like it, because everybody's so different. You know?
It's very subjective.
Yeah,
And
very subjective.
to me, I can't explain to you why I love Daft Punk so much. I just do. Like, all those songs I love. They just sound good. They're infectious. They're earworm songs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're songs I just come back and listen to all the time. I mean, yeah, this is a straight up S tier band for me. It's a top 3 band for me.
Yeah.
And I love all their albums. I mean, that's the lowest I gave it was a B.
That's true. Yeah. For me, I think I'd say B plus. I think, you know, Discovery and Random Access Memories are both fantastic albums.
Oh, sure.
But then they have, you know, Homework and Human After All. And you know, with only 4 albums to really judge them by, you know, if I think 2 are amazing and then 2 are just okay, you know, you kind of got to go middle ground. I imagine seeing Daft Punk live, for me personally, would probably raise them up to like an A or maybe even higher, because I've heard they put on amazing shows.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately we probably will never be able to see them now.
I don't even think it's probably. There's just
you
no way.
never know.
Come on, man. They didn't even tour when they could.
I know.
They didn't even tour in support of Random Access Memories.
I know.
They went on a tour in '97, then '07, and that's it.
Maybe 2027.
Well, that's what we thought about 2017.
That's true. So I mean, yeah, I do like Daft Punk. I like a lot of their songs, and I have a lot of their songs that I'm going to add to this playlist. You know, that I've made for this podcast. But you know, I don't connect with them as much as you do.
No, that's fair. I mean,
yeah,
we haven't got to a band that's the other way, but this was inevitable that we're going to get to a band that somebody likes more than the other one, and it's kind of the cool thing. Yeah. And we did know that coming to Daft Punk that this was going to be a higher one-sided album or review. But I think now is a good time to choose Daft Punk. I mean, only broke up within the last month, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll get back to more bands that we don't. But I don't know. It was kind of interesting to do a band where it's more one-sided.
Mm-hmm. Just to hear the passion that the other person has for that band, you know. So.
And yeah, I'm sure we'll get to a band for you that you like more than I do.
Probably.
So, yeah. What's next week's? I know you had a band and you're not sure of it.
Yeah, I originally had a band.
We won't name it because we might come back to it.
That I haven't named, but I listened to a couple of their other songs and it really got me feeling sketchy about them. Like, a lot of those lyrics and a lot of those songs are pretty, I wouldn't necessarily say, like, they're definitely violent. They're also very hot subjects.
It's not Rage Against the Machine for anybody wondering, which we will definitely do.
I was gonna do this band, this one that I'm gonna announce right now, in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I think I'll do them now.
And then give yourself time to think of what you want to do this week.
Yeah, and think. So next week, we're going to do Cake.
Ooh, I only know one Cake song.
Okay.
I think most people know one Cake song.
Yeah, I was introduced to them, and I was shown their most popular song, like their really huge one, and I did not know it at all.
You didn't know The Distance?
Nope.
What?
I did not know The Distance.
How did you not know The Distance?
I listened to that whole song, and I was like, I don't think I've ever heard
You've
this.
never heard The Distance?
No. So
wow, that's surprising.
So that's why I was like, okay, I mean, if this was a huge song, like, what else have I missed out on in this band, you know? And I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, I love The Distance.
You know?
I mean, I didn't know the band was by.
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of shocked you've never heard The Distance.
Yeah,
Not even a little bit.
I didn't recall any of it.
Should watch the music video for that. That's pretty interesting music video too.
So yeah, next week.
Cake.
It's going to be Cake. So
all right.
Thank you for joining us this week.
Check us out when we have a slice of cake.